Hi, Cecile here from Just Another Button Company, and we have something fun to talk about today. We're going to do a little bit of button applique, but first I want to show you this fabulous new book called Homegrown. It's by Art to Heart. Our friend Nancy has come up with another winning quilt design that she's put in this book, and then made all kinds of fun little projects on the inside of the book that use a lot of our buttons, which we're very excited about. And when you flip through this book, you're just going to see all kinds of buttons. But on page 16, there's this fun little saying, and I'm going to put it down so you get a close-up shot of it. It says, "Moms like buttons hold everything together," which we think is very sweet. So we're going to do a little bit of talking about how to applique all those buttons and get them to fit together and to be a nice little arrangement like that, because we have created a special pack of buttons for Mom's Mini Quilt, which is the name of this little project here by Nancy Halverson from Art to Heart. And there's a shot of the Homegrown book, and you can get her book at your local quilt shop or at Nancy's website, arttoheart.com. And I'm just going to mention, Nancy doesn't make very many mistakes, but this, she did put on her website, the pattern for these little words right here is in a little section called corrections on her website, so that's where you find the words. And all the rest of the instructions for this entire book are all included. There's a big fold out sheet of full-size patterns. Get this table runner, that's one of my favorites, and look, you can see all those buttons in there used for flower centers. Okay, so let's put aside the book, and Rachel has put together the beginnings of this Moms Hold Everything Together mini quilt. And it starts with this little heart applique shape on here, and then she'll still embroider the words on here. Now Nancy tells you to go ahead and put together your block, and if you're going to do a little wall hanging with it, to go ahead and quilt it and do all the steps before you add the buttons on there. So just because we skipped ahead a little bit there, I didn't want you to be confused by the fact that Nancy's instructions are different, because we do sew our buttons on after we finish also. This is just for the purposes of the tutorial. Okay, so if you dump out your button pack, you see that we've given you lots to work with. These three little turquoise buttons right here, you can set these aside because you use those later when you're embellishing up here. Okay, so now you have all of these buttons. Now these are scooped up and packed randomly, but there's a really good assortment in here to make sure that you have more than enough to cover the surface of your heart. You just might not find the exact shape and color of the button that you see on Nancy's pattern, but it's going to be really, really close. So how do we do this? It's sort of like putting a puzzle together. And I like to take the big ones. If there's any special one that you really like, maybe you just really don't care for red squares, you can always throw that one out, because you'll still have plenty to complete your button applique without using every single one of them. But if you kind of arrange around and don't make it too symmetric, because it'll be more fun if you don't. Some of the bigger ones you might want to put toward the edge, and some of them more toward the middle, and then fill in with some of the medium ones. That. Okay, now if I have a little bit of extra space right there, I know that it's going to go together better if I snug those up closer together. I just about, oh, see, now I don't want to put that red one down there, because that's too close, too much red in that one spot. Because I'm just sticking them, just dropping them into place right now. You can always pick them up and move them too. Now, don't forget that you have some heart buttons in there too, and you want to be able to use all of your hearts. And I like to put my hearts on there. Maybe just tilt it a little bit, but still facing you as you're looking at the heart with the base at the bottom. Okay, so moving on to the next size here. Not trying too hard to be perfect. You take as much time with this as you want to, but it's really not difficult. You don't want to think it has to be any certain way. Right now I'm tucking in a few of these little ones in here too. And they're going to scoot the big ones, but that's okay. That spot right there is just about the right size for that one. Okay, now I have a slightly bigger spot there. Maybe I'll put that red one down there. That does kind of a lot of red all in the same spot. So what if I switch those two? Now you can see that I'm getting to the point where I might be a little bit more fussy about what I'm doing. I have one heart left. You know what? I'm going to leave that to the side. I'm also going to leave that little guy to the side. All right. I just about have all of the open spaces. Pretty much filled up. Okay, now it's okay that I can see a little bit of the fabric there, but if you really don't want to, you can keep scooting until pretty much everything is covered. But at the end, I like to have 3 or 4 left over because I'm going to sew these all down, and then I'm going to come back and I'm going to make this dimensional by adding a second layer. All I have to have is just a little space like that so that I can get to the fabric to sew those down. And I just think it just makes it look that much more interesting to have that second layer on there. Okay, so let's say that I like the way that looks. I also want to point out to you that if you happen to have this button right here and you really want something over top of it, you can actually sew up through one of those holes and sew this button right over top of it too when you're doing your layering at the end. Okay, so nice and full. Okay, so if I'm ready to sew, I'm going to take off that second layer, and I think that I really like where everything is laying. Should I switch that? No, I think I like it right there. So I'm going to set, even though these two are close together, I'm going to just use that area right here for adding my second layer later. Okay, so I'm going to scoot the second layer to the side. And believe it or not, this is my favorite method for basting buttons into space. I'm going to use Scotch tape. Okay, so see how you can just stick that on there. Now, whoops, there's another second layer one. I also want to tell you that a lot of times when I get to this point, before I even start putting the Scotch tape on there, I take a photo of this with my cell phone in case some things get scooted around or the dog bumps me and the whole thing goes on the floor. You just never know what's going to happen. And that way, if I just had something perfect, I really wanted that, I can always recreate it using my cell phone. The other thing that you can do is if you have that marked, you can always just scoot off all but a few like that. Push these over to the side. And now you can pick this part up and sew these on. I want to remind you too that we do have another tutorial about sewing the buttons onto the quilt square or onto a pillow in another spot. Look for the link after this tutorial. Thanks for joining us and learning how to do button applique.